The 25th Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, Summit 2025 was held this year in Taiping, China. Even though the SCO has only 10 member countries, the most important are China, Russia and India. This year's summit was the biggest in its history, due to a high number of guest countries attending. That is a clear indicator of the growing Eurasian sentiment. But let to be clear, even though there were a few bizarre moments like when Modi and Putin entered the summit literally hand in hand, and the Indian leader apparently to lead the aging dictator Putin across the room. Or the inseparable pair Putin and Modi were seen weirdly giggling and smiling at one each other as they met up with Chinese authoritarian Xi Jinping. The recent SCO summit wasn't about replacing the existing world order led by the West, simply because at this point the group is still far from being unified. India and China are not exactly friends, but rivals about border issues, international influence, and economic priorities. Russia's economy has serious problems, and the Central Asian members all have their own agendas. Before we get deeper into what a multipolar world in the SCO context could mean, let me do a very quick little detour to Europe. With initiatives such as strengthening its own defense capabilities, investing in energy independence, and developing a more autonomous foreign policy position, Europe has been making clear effort to become less dependent on the US, especially ever since the orange fascist gangster came to power. This push for strategic autonomy within the European Union reflects a desire to have a greater control over its own affairs. While still maintaining some trade and security ties with the US, those efforts have significantly grown since Trump returned to power in January this year, and he showed the world that relying solely on US leadership does not align with European interests anymore. Instead, Europe has undoubtedly shown an interest to move closer to Canada, not only in trade but also in security. So the Europe-Canada bloc, if you will, is strengthening, while Europe and Canadian ties to the US unmistakably weakened. Contrary to what the orange buffoon in the House of Horrors, aka the White House, seems to believe, Asia is not stupid, and they have obviously noted how unreliable and untrustworthy the US has become. So they try to follow the Europe-Canada route. Now we have two blocs, the Euro-Canadian and the Euro-Asian bloc. In the midst is the US, with increasingly weakened connections to the West and to the East. So now back to the SCO. This summit has unmistakably signaled a move towards a more multipolar world. Think of it like this. The US and Euro-Canadian are still major players, but they now have to deal with a growing competition from new clubs and coalitions. This means the West can't just set the rules by itself anymore, it will have to negotiate and compromise more often. At the summit, China and Russia pushed for ideas that bypasses Western systems, like building new trading routes across Eurasia and ditching the US dollar for their own currency in transactions. The US dollar won't vanish overnight, but over time, more countries will have alternatives. It could make Western sanctions less effective and reduce their leverage in future crises. Overall, SCO goals are to fight terrorism and to limit Western influence. For Europe, this could mean less access to energy and a harder time getting countries to side with them in international groups. This is why the EU is now siding with Canada. An interesting twist is India. Despite that the orange idiot does everything in his power to piss off India, the friendlier the West is with India, the less unified this alternative bloc SCO becomes. So, is there a brand new world order? I would say yes, to some extent, but I see it more as a reorganization of trading routes and partners. It's more accurate to say that trade and security alliances, and therefore also power, is becoming more spread out. We are moving into an era where multiple trading and power centers, like the Western Bloc with EuroCanada on one hand and the US on the other, then the Eurasian Bloc with China, India and others, will all coexist and compete. The challenge for the West isn't to stop this change, but to adapt to it. This means, number one, each country must make an effort to strengthening its economy, industry and defense to be attractive to other countries. Something Mark Carney is doing right now for Canada. Number two, strengthening old alliances. And number three, offering attractive economic partnerships to new possible trading partners. And number four, engaging constructively with countries that want options. The West will remain central, but is no longer the only one steering the ship. So what does all that mean for Canada? Okay, first we have to take a look at the current United States of America. The US economy is in a bit of a tricky spot right now, and it got a lot of folks talking. On the surface, things might look pretty strong. Unemployment is still relatively low, and consumer spending hasn't completely dried out. But dig a little deeper, and you will see some cracks that are making both businesses and workers a little bit uneasy. Take a look.
The economy's weakening. Whether that is on the way to recession or just weakening, I don't know, and that just confirms what we already thought, kind of.
And I know
that's a big revision. They're still spending money. It's a little bit different depending what income set they're coming from. They still have jobs. Now, you just gave a big number, so consumers tend to react to that. So the consumers weaken, confidence weaken, corporate profit is still up. And there's a lot of different factors in the economy right now. It's hard to figure out what it all means.
Other things like what we've done with the deportations, which only increase the cost of construction, which increases the cost of housing, which increases the cost of things like chicken and all sorts of things. So, look, if I were in the Trump administration shoes, I'd say, aha, see, it all started under Biden. That's nice. It's still now on your watch, and your policies, it looked like now are adding on, sort of creating even more headwinds that were already there.
I think the thing that to me is most interesting about these numbers is manufacturing. There is some real problems right now in the manufacturing sector that are being hit by tariffs that had started earlier. But this whole idea that somehow manufacturing was going to be resurgent, I think is really showing a lot of weakness. And those are numbers that I look at. We see these big numbers and these big revisions. It was the biggest revision, I think, ever. And that is serious.
What is your definition or description, rather, of what the Trump economy is today?
Dead in the water.
By that you mean?
If you look out there in the labor market, no one's getting hired. We don't have mass layoffs. No one's getting fired. It's just stalled.
Things are frozen.
Stalled. Absolutely. There's some bad parts. Like, manufacturing is in open decline. We're down almost 40,000 jobs this year. The private sector in the past 4 months outside of healthcare has not really shown any job growth. So that's a very flat labor market.
And the Treasury Secretary said last week, Scott Bessent, that there will be higher GDP growth and nearly $1 trillion in tariff revenue. You said to yourself, what?
Gibberish. Makes no sense. I mean, these are positions the president has taken. We're going to have better growth. This will be the golden age. We're going to raise all this revenue. But they're not connected to reality. This is a $400 billion increase in taxes in the United States.
So the question is why? Well, there are things that have a direct financial impact. Look no further than the House of Horrors, aka the White House. The Orange Idiots import tax, also known under its nickname Tariffs, have made life for Americans more expensive and crippled US industries. Trump's trade policies and investment extortions of foreign trading partners, ICE arrests, custody and deportation of immigrants, illegal or not, Trump's policies bankrupting US farmers and other agriculture industries, BABA, the global buy anything but American, and the US travel boycotts that have both started here in Canada. And then there are things with an indirect financial impact. The orange gangster fascist's twice convicted felon has shown himself as an authoritarian of the worst kind by corrupting the US court system, including the Supreme Court, controlling and suppressing US citizens by sending the military into blue cities and states, creating concentration camps for ICE arrests, Trump's obvious and blatant corruption, dishonesty, and disregards for human rights at home and abroad. And so many other examples, much more than I could list here. All this has not only slowed down the US economy, but by ignoring commercial opportunities within the US and discouraging foreign investment, it will be difficult for the US economy to recover and build up for a more prosperous future. Think about it. What foreign country would be eager to invest in a country controlled by a fascist authoritarian gangster, especially if the investor can expect that all of his employees will be arrested, as just happened at the Hyundai project in Georgia. Consequently, US factory employment has reached its lowest point in 5 years, with 37,000 jobs that got lost. International travel revenue in 2025 is expected to lose 21 billion. That alone will reduce the US GDP by more than 23.7 billion and lead to more than 230,600 lost jobs. Now, all that brings us to Canada. Since Mark Carney became our Prime Minister in April this year, he worked hard to adjust our country to the new world order of international trade and security. Mark Carney clearly states that what is happening now is the global economy is not in a transition, but a rupture. And Canada must adjust big time, not only to manage through the crisis, but also to be a better, healthier and more prosperous country we have ever been. By stop being reliant on a single untrustworthy trading partner, but diversifying trade and security, and first and foremost building an economy that finds strength in trading within the country itself, instead of giving our profit to the unreliable neighbor south the border. Mark Carney has announced the first 5 major projects of a larger number of projects that will take place over time. Here is a quick summary by our friends of the CBC News.
Right, to how things have gone in the past. So let's start with the list of 5 that made it. We've got phase 2 of LNG Canada in Kitimat, BC. We have the Darlington new nuclear project in Clarington, Ontario. They're going to build small modular reactors. We have the Contrecoeur Terminal Container Project to expand the Port of Montreal. The McKelvina Bay Foreign Copper Mine Project in Saskatchewan, and the expansion of the Red Chris Mine in northwestern BC. So those are the 5 that have made it on the first, going to the new office that's going to say, yes, this is how we get these across the finish line more quickly. However, there is an additional list of 7 that are too early to say that they can just get done, need a little bit more work, but are still priorities for the government, according to Mark Carney. So that includes critical mineral projects in Ontario, Northwest Territories, and the Quebec Labrador, Wind West Atlantic Energy, which is wind power in Atlantic Canada, of course, Alberta-based Pathways Plus carbon capture project, lots of talk about that, an Arctic Economic and Security Corridor, upgrades to the Port of Churchill in Manitoba, all-weather road infrastructure in northern Canada, high-speed rail between Toronto and Quebec City, and a Canadian sovereign cloud, which would give us data and computing sovereignty and not relying on the U.S. Now,
and a very important remark our Prime Minister made was in relation of drastically improving project approval speed. Take a listen.
Is that we used to build big things in this country, and we used to build them quickly. It's time to get back at it, and it's time to get on with it. That starts with getting out of the way. For too long, the construction of major infrastructure in Canada has been stalled by arduous and inefficient approval processes. From now on, Canada's new government starts by asking ourselves for major projects, how? How can we do it bigger? How can we do it faster?
I'm sure you agree with me that this is a major step in the right direction. Combine this with Carney's successful Europe trip, where he arranged to be the leading country of a major defense expo in Poland.
The invitation for Canada to be the lead nation at a fairly important European Defence Expo, which is the one that's held in the Polish city of Kielce every year. And next year, Canada will be the lead nation of about 60 delegations, 60 national delegations that go there. So,
and some exciting stuff in Germany. Have a listen.
They've got some deals done. First, Canada and Germany are going to have signed a critical minerals partnership that will see Canadian critical minerals produced and developed for export markets. Second, Canada and Germany say they're going to get serious about finding ways to export Canadian liquefied natural gas to German markets. Details TBD. But the big commercial and defense news of the day was all about submarines. The Royal Canadian Navy is in the market right now for 12 new subs. And Canada announced today that it has narrowed down the potential bidders or suppliers for those subs to two companies. One in South Korea, a Hanwha Ocean Company, and the other a German-Norwegian consortium headed up by ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems.
All this, my friends, is fantastic news. This is how we not only managed to get through this Trump-induced economic coma, but how we will actually take the overall negative situation of the orange gangsters trade terror on the world and turn it around, so that at the end this negative thing turns actually into something very positive and beneficial, not only for Canada, but also our closest allies in Europe, Mexico and Australia. EuroCanada with Mexico and Australia will become a major trading force with Asia. Eurasia will trade among each other and EuroCanada. But Eurasia and EuroCanada will still have some trading situations with the US. But nothing compared what we had over the last, 60 years. And the US? I think the US has much too long believed that they are too big to fail. Well, in a sense, it is true. However, because they are so big and Trump has fucked them up so royally, they will need a long time to recover after they have shrunk into isolation. Please let me know what you think, how the Carney's government is doing in the comments below. I read every thought and story you share. For more commentaries on real news, facts and viewpoints, to counterbalance the demagogic of the right-wing media, please like and subscribe. It goes a long way to help the channel. Till next time, I'm Wilfried Lemkuler from Europe Curious.
We were petrified, kept thinking we could never live without you by our side. And we spent so many nights thinking how you did us wrong. Now we've banded all together. Your tariff made us strong, and so you know you're not so great. There's not a snowball's chance in hell will be your 51st state. We really need our resources for more than we need you, so now just go. Walk out the door. state my fucking ass. Go on, Canada.